Revelation 1766. From the 6th of January 1941. Love, wisdom and omnipotence of God. Everything in the universe bears witness to the love, omnipotence and wisdom of God. What is, became through love, for love is the origin of all creation. It is the power that was the precondition for the emergence of creation and which became form through divine will. Thus every work of creation reveals God's never-ending will of love, but at the same time also an unsurpassable wisdom which underlies his thoughts placed into the universe as works. Innumerable creations have come into being, each work is, as it were, a world of its own. And yet all creations are related to each other, complementing each other in the wisest order and created for each other. Innumerable variations reveal the wisest creative spirit again in every work of creation. There is nothing that is deficient or not appropriate for its purpose. There is nothing that is imperfect or in need of improvement. It is all evidence of supreme wisdom and supremely perfect. What his wisdom considered and his love willed, his omnipotence brought to pass. There are no limits to the possibilities of implementation where God's will is active. Everything is at his command. His power surpasses his creative will, and thus he can put everything into action that he wants. He is therefore the unrestricted ruler of the whole of creation. For what was possible for him to create must also continue to be subject to his will, since his will brought it into being. Where God's love, wisdom and omnipotence work together, new creations must come into being, and these must also testify to God's love, wisdom and omnipotence again. That is, whatever has love as its creator must radiate love, that is, it must be recognizable as a work of love. What God's wisdom allowed to come into being as it is must also appear exceedingly wise and surpass every human conception, just as divine omnipotence must speak from every work of creation, because without it nothing created could come into being. But where God's love, wisdom and omnipotence was once active, there is no passing away of it, and therefore the term eternal inevitably belongs to it. What God wanted in his love, determined in his wisdom and allowed to come into being through his omnipotence can never pass away. God's creation is everlasting, that is what God's love, wisdom and omnipotence has made into a creator must be so perfect that it is destined for eternity. It can only undergo an external change through divine will which, however, requires God's love, wisdom and omnipotence again. Thus this change never signifies a dissolution of what is but only the attainment of the goal which God has set for the work of creation from the beginning. Thus, since all works of creation correspond to a purpose, this purpose can only be achieved through a transformation of the work of creation. God's love, wisdom and omnipotence are irrevocably the original cause of all existing things and therefore inevitably have to be acknowledged, which proves the human being's faith in a being of God who is perfect beyond all measure. Amen.